We're going to talk about shapes. We're going to insert, move, copy, and delete a shape. We're going to edit the shape by using the inflection points and the rotation handle. We're going to look at connecting the shapes together with connectors and look at the rerouting functionality. We can use formulas and text features that drive content that displays in the shape. We have formatting options, including changing the fill, the outline. We have some effects we can apply to the shape. We're going to look at the options on the shortcut menu. We're going to talk about the shape properties. And there are two shape options that really aren't shapes that either allow you to draw something on your worksheet or to freehand draw your own custom shape. So I've got a blank workbook and we're going to insert a shape. And to insert a shape, you go to the Insert tab, the Illustrations group, left-click Shape. The first thing that's listed at the top are the recently used shapes. And underneath that, there are 160 different shapes grouped into 8 different groups. To insert a shape into your worksheet, left-click a shape and then draw it out. Now, you can draw the shape in any sort of form that you want. And it has the general characteristics of the shape you selected. But to draw it perfectly, hold down the Shift key, and I can make it bigger or larger, but I'm not able to distort it in any way. So that way I can get a perfectly drawn shape. Release the mouse button and release the Shift key. So once we insert the shape, we can grab it and move it just by left-clicking and holding down the left mouse button. We can copy the shape in any way that you copy any other item on the worksheet. Control-C, select a destination, Control-V. I can hold down the Control key, grab the shape, and drag a copy of it over there. And to delete it, first select it, and of course this shape is already selected, and press the Delete key. Delete, delete. So I've inserted another shape, and I've held down the Shift key to draw it perfectly. And I have some handles that I can manipulate the shape with. I've got the rotation handle, it's green, and I've got all of these handles on the corner that I can stretch and manipulate the shape with. And again, if you want to change the size and keep the shape perfectly drawn, hold the Shift key down, and that way the shape will not be distorted. It'll just get larger or smaller. On the Format tab in the Insert Shapes group, we have the ability to get this drop-down list and insert another shape. We can also edit the shape that we've selected by changing it to a different shape or by adding inflection points that gives us a more refined control over the shape. And when you do this, I get 2 more inflection points that I can start bending the straight lines with. And these inflection points are located every place where 2 lines meet. So I've got 3 shapes on my worksheet. There's a way to connect these shapes together. I'm going to go to the Insert tab, Shapes, and there's 2 sorts of connectors that you can use. One is a straight line, and when you hover near the edge of a shape, you'll get a red square that I can left-click on, and when I go over to the other shape, I get another red square, and when I release it, this connector is actually connected to the shape. The other sort of shape that I can use as a connector is this one, the elbow connector. And again, I get the red square, and that one is now connected. When you're using connectors and you start manipulating these shapes around your worksheet, you can end up with some results that you may not want. There's probably a better way to route those connectors. Well, there's a simple way to change the routing, and that is to go to the Edit Shape and left-click Reroute Connectors. And the connectors should change position using the route that's the most efficient way to get from one shape to another. So when I left-click Reroute Connectors, they reorient themselves in a way that makes a bit more sense given the geographic location of the shapes on the worksheet. Shapes are unique in that you can have a result displayed in the shape that's driven by a formula that's a reference to another cell. Equal O10, which is where I have my text, enter, I now have the shape displaying the content that's in cell O10. And of course, that could be a result of a formula, or whatever you want it to be, or just a simple text phrase. Once I have text that's in the shape, I can use all of the text formatting features as I could if the text was sitting outside the shape. I can make it larger, smaller, I can center it, and of course when I update the text in the cell, the formula that's linking to it will display that new content in the shape. I can also, instead of doing a formula, type text directly into the shape. Or I can go to the Insert Shapes dialog box and insert a text box that I can add text to. And we'll cover text boxes in another movie. They have their own bit of functionality. There are a lot of formatting choices that we have on the Format tab, beginning with shape styles that really allow us to change the color as much as anything else and put a border there. We can change the fill to a different color than we just selected. We get a preview on all of these, which is nice. We can add a picture, we can add a gradient, we can add texture. I'll left click off of that. We can add a border. I'll add a black border. And of course we can change the weight, change the style of the border. We can choose more colors if the colors showing there weren't enough. And we have the ability to change all sorts of effects. And if you want to see what these things do, just hover over one of them and you'll get a preview. So there's the presets, there's the shadows. And I'll just select that one for fun. And glow, a little glow around the edge. And since we have a glow around the edge, maybe we don't want to soften it up, or I don't know, maybe we do. We have a border, we'll just skip the soft edges. We can put a bevel that gives some depth to the shape. And then the 3D rotation has all sorts of options as well. So I'll select that one. And the rest of the formatting tab has to do with word styles and the arrange group, both of which we're going to cover in other movies. And lastly, we can resize it by left-clicking these spin buttons, up or down for the height or the width. So there's also a shortcut menu that you can call up by right-clicking the shape. We can edit the text that's directly typed into the shape. We can call up the edit points, the inflection points. We have some arrangement functionality, which again we're going to cover in another movie. We can attach a hyperlink or assign a macro to the shape. And we can set this shape as the default shape. And I'll show you what that does, because when you left-click it, it looks like it doesn't do anything. I'll show you in a minute what that actually did. And we can call up the Format Shape dialog box by left-clicking either Size and Properties or Format Shape. And this gives you granular control over all of the options that are actually driving the presets on the Format tab. So I'm going to close that. And we just set this shape as the default shape. And that doesn't mean every time you add a shape to your workbook, you're going to get this exact shape. What it does mean is when you add a shape to your workbook, is you're going to get a shape that's formatted like that shape. These default styles are workbook specific, so if I close this workbook or just go to another workbook, my default shape style will be the original default that came with out-of-the-box Excel. So there are shape properties that we need to talk about quickly here. And those can be found off the shortcut menu, right-clicking to get the shape format dialog box, going down to properties. And we have three choices. One, move in size with cells. Generally speaking, that's probably not what you want. I'm going to left-click off of that because what happens is when you collapse cells or change column widths or row height, your shape changes right along with the change you made to those columns. I'm going to Control Z to undo that. Select the shape again. What you may want is to move but don't size the shape. So if I insert some columns to the left, the shape will move to the right. Again, I'm going to Control Z to undo that. Or you may not want that to happen either. So when I left click and select two columns and insert two columns, the shapes stay put. Lastly, we're going to talk about Scribble and Freeform. These options are available, insert shapes, in the lines group at the right side, and I'm going to select Scribble. And what this enables you to do is to just draw a shape, and when you connect the lines and release the mouse button, you get your hand-drawn shape with the style we just set as a default a couple of minutes ago. You can also use this functionality, Insert Shapes, to just draw. You don't necessarily have to create a shape. You can draw something on your worksheet, probably a lot better than I can. And when I hit Escape, I have a drawing. There's no shape associated with this drawing. It's a horrible drawing, but somebody with some artistic ability might be able to utilize this functionality. So that's shapes. We inserted, moved, copied, and deleted a shape. We edited a shape with its inflection points, and we used a rotating handle to spin it around. We took a look at connectors and how we can reroute the connectors once we move our shapes around the worksheet and maintain a sort of a uniform flow of the connectors to the other shapes. We looked at driving the content that's displayed in a shape using formulas, or typing text into the shape, or using a text box. We looked at the formatting options, including the fill, the shape outline, or the border, and we took a look at a lot of effects that we can apply to the shapes. We looked at the shortcut menu, which among other things allows us to establish a new default shape style. We talked about the properties and how if you don't have that set correctly, when you increase or decrease your column widths and row heights, you can end up distorting your shape or move it to a location that you don't want it to be in. And we looked at the Scribble and Freeform functionality, where you can draw a shape of any shape that you want to, or just draw something on your worksheet.